Hello, everybody. Today, me, Gavin Marone, Jasmine Perez, and Alexa Gonzalez will be talking about the great movie Cinderella Man, directed by Ron Howard.
When I say the name Cinderella Man, you probably don't picture a tough boxer. You may even be thinking of a man in a fairy tale. But the movie Cinderella Man tells the real-life story of a man named James J. Braddock, a boxer whose career hit high levels of success, then later completely collapsed alongside the Great Depression, then later rose back to the top. Directed by Ron Howard and released in 2005, the film follows the highs and lows of Braddock and his family's life. He and his family struggled during the Great Depression with fear, hunger, and unemployment, the same issue millions of American families faced in the 1930s. In Cinderella Man, director Ron Howard uses James J. Braddock's story of an unlikely boxing comeback during a time of despair, showing how perseverance, determination, and loyalty helped Americans during the Great Depression get through poverty and hardships, accurately portraying the many struggles of the time while turning Braddock's life story into a symbol of inspiration and hope. And now we begin at the very beginning of the movie.
Before the Great Depression hit, James J. Braddock was living a normal and successful life as a boxer and a family man. Braddock had built a strong boxing career in the 1920s, and he was earning thousands of dollars for each match, which was enough to support his wife May and their children comfortably. The family had a nice home, owned lots of furniture, and Braddock even invested in a small taxi business and even stocks to secure their future. And at that time, life seemed hopeful and predictable. The film shows this early success of Braddock's life of winning fights, celebrating with his family, and feeling confident about his career. That all sets up everything to show the life he had before the fight and how much in contrast it was after the Depression. The background of Braddock's life helps us understand how far he had to fall when the economy collapsed and emphasizes how drastically his life changed once the Great Depression hit. And with this economic prosperity came devastation for him and his whole family. When the Great Depression began, Braddock's life took a quick turnaround, with him and his family falling apart physically, financially, and emotionally. As the economy and stock market crashed, Braddock's injuries and losing streak made him unable to win fights or even earn money. His injuries, which included his right hand, made him unequipped to fight because of the many fractures. And without the steady income, the family was forced to sell their house and everything in it just to survive. And in the film, we see Braddock's family living without heat or electricity, and just wrapping themselves in blankets, just to survive with basic needs. Braddock desperately tries to find some work at the docks, even though the chances were slim, with almost hundreds of men also trying for work. And most of the days he came back empty-handed. These scenes illustrated how sudden and severely Braddock's life had changed, supporting that his determination became his only option for surviving. And it was not just Braddock's life who had changed. It was the rest of the U.S. too.
Cinderella Man doesn't just tell one man's story, it tells the story of those who lived through the Great Depression. Many families lost their homes and had to move into very small apartments or temporary shelters. Some people even ended up living in what were called Hoovervilles, which were camps of huts and tents named after President Hoover. These living spaces often had bad living conditions and high crime rates. The film shows the Braddocks moving into a cramped apartment. A very emotional scene is shown where May sends their kids to stay with the family member because they didn't have enough money to provide for their kids. Braddock is so ashamed in the fact that his children needed to leave that he asks for government aid. Once he starts earning money again, he returns that money to the government. This all happened in real life. We can also see groups of men at the dock, all begging for work, as well as scenes where people are angrily protesting about how they were evicted from their homes. Historians who have studied the Great Depression have highlighted that job lines, relief offices, and eviction were all very common across the United States, so the movie setting matches the real history. By demonstrating how similar the Braddocks family problems are to what millions of Americans truly face, the film supports her thesis by the story representing the widest struggles and determination people had to face during the Great Depression. And with those downsides also came the comeback. The most inspiring part of Cinderella Man is how Braddock's own perseverance gives hope to his family, and struggling Americans view him as a symbol of hope. After being pushed aside and written off as a washed-up boxer, Braddock gets a surprising chance to fight again because another boxer canceled. Though it's short notice, Braddock jumps at the chance to be in another match. He ends up winning and continues to win against tougher opponents. He eventually wins his way through the boxers till he gets the opportunity to fight Max Baer, the heavyweight champion, known for his brute force and power, as well as supposedly having killed 2 men in the ring with his hits. Historically, Braddock was known to be a huge underdog in his infamous fight against Baer. Many people feared that he would be absolutely destroyed, but he unexpectedly won the match in a very neck-to-neck fight against Baer and won the heavyweight title. In the movie, the crowds that cheered for Braddock weren't just excited about boxing, but excited that he represented someone who struggled as they did, who can now rise to the top. He's a working class dad who consistently struggled to find employment during the Depression, finding work at docks and going hungry at times. When he wins, for the audience, it feels like the ordinary person is winning too. Some say he's a folk hero of the Depression, which further displays how people viewed him as proof that they could continue fighting in these harsh times. This connects back to the thesis that through his determination and courage, Braddock's comeback had offered hope and proved perseverance can help face even the worst economic crisis. Now that we've seen his journey, it's important to ask, how accurate is this film's version of these events?
Historians and film reviewers have argued that Cinderella Man is for the most part accurate in how it represents the Great Depression, especially when they demonstrate unemployment, relief lines, and Hoovervilles. For example, the historian writing in the Journal of American History points out that the movie not only focuses on an individual hero, but also shows the bigger social and economic problems that were taking place in the 1930s. Nevertheless, it leaves certain details of Braddock's life and makes Max Baer look more like the bad guy than some biographies suggest. Overall, Cinderella Man is very effective at making the history of the Great Depression feel real and emotional for its modern audience. Understanding both the story and its accuracy helps us reach our conclusion.
And so, throughout Cinderella Man, we see how James J. Braddock's own strength and determination not only helped change his own life, but also inspired an entire nation of people struggling through the Great Depression. His resolve to fight for his own family, even when everything sounded impossible, becomes the main message for the story. The film displays 3 main ideas. First, how Braddock's family and career were shattered by the effects of the Great Depression. Second, how millions of Americans faced a similar harsh economic state, poverty, unemployment, and loss. And third, how his perseverance and love towards his family brought him hope to people who felt that they had nothing else left. Cinderella Man reminds us that even though in our toughest moments, having resilience and determination, as well as support from those around us, can help us get through any obstacle. That is why James J. Braddock's story continues to inspire many of us to this day.